Hello and welcome. This is going to be a crash course for how to complete your instructional hours calendars for the coming school year. It's going to go very quickly, so please, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to our team. I'll show you where our contact information is located on our website. So first, we're going to start on the website. We'll start at sde.idaho.gov, and this is the homepage that you'll land on. First, you're going to want to scroll down to Public School Finance, this button here. And this is where all of your templates, manuals, how-tos, contact information is going to live. If you need any of our information, our staff button is right here. And if you open it, all sorts of things come up and you can see who can help you. Going back to our school finance page, you're going to see that we currently have a highlight for our calendar forms since they are posted for the new school year. They'll be in the calendar resources section below. So we'll go down here to our resource files, go to calendar resources and go to this little drop down menu. And there are all sorts of documents here, but in this video particularly, we're only going to focus on 3. We will have a second video after this one that you will also want to watch that will go over the closure form and the revision form. So definitely watch the following video for those details. But for starters here, we are just going to focus on these 3 documents. The first is going to be the calendar manual. This document is going to be very important, especially for you new calendar folks. It goes into great detail on what the calendar forms require, what code requires, and what you need to look out for. Just a very brief overview that I want to point out. We have the code section here, which details what the minimum hour requirements are for each grade grouping, and then what defines instructional hours. And then, of course, in the manual, there's also information on how to submit their forms. They're always due May 31st, and there's our contact information if you have questions and how to submit them. Definitely give this a read through before you get started, even if you are a regular to completing the calendar forms. It never hurts to have a refresher, and sometimes some minuscule things change, so it does not hurt to at least give this a glance through as you go through the process. I'm not going to deep dive into this one since I'm going to walk you through the form itself, but if you have any questions on this manual, definitely feel free to reach out to us. The next document that I want to show you is on our website. Next is this calendar memo, a very similar document that you're going to want to be familiar with. It's kind of a condensed version of the manual, and it gives you a little bit more of a high-level insight. But same thing here, it tells you what to identify on your forms, when the forms are due, how to submit them. And it gives you a brief overview of the difference between the instructional hours calendars and your IC calendars. Your IC calendars is what's used for your attendance and enrollment reporting, and that ultimately leads to your funding. So these are 2 very different documents that work kind of hand in hand with each other. So this memo just kind of gives you a little bit more detail about that. And if you have any questions, again, here's our contact information on this one. All right, and last but certainly not least, the most important form of them all is the actual instructional hours calendar template. This is going to be one form that you'll submit for all of your calendars. It's an Excel document and you'll have multiple tabs to complete. Okay, so this is your actual instructional hours calendar form that you will be completing. There are multiple tabs in here, so please bear with me, but I'm going to kind of work backwards just to give you a little bit of insight. So the first thing to know is that you can have as many tabs as you want. These yellow tabs are just kind of our standard templates, but you can duplicate these as many times as you need to get the amount of calendars that you need for your district. So there are instructions here for adding your new tab, and then how to rename them. We prefer that you name them off of their grade grouping just to make it simple for us to look at. So for starters, one thing to note is that anything in this tan or kind of yellowish color is going to be what you need to fill out. Anything else should be locked for you. So if you click somewhere and start typing something in, it shouldn't let you. There are two different kindergarten templates. The only deviation in these templates is that one is for half day and one is for full day. The entire form is the same. It's just this grade served box at the very top that you'll take a look at. If you offer a half day kindergarten session, so you have an AM, PM, or both, this is entered here. And then the rest of the form is the same. The full day, again, just says full day session. Both of these kindergarten forms have the minimum hours required set at 450. The last tab here is your grades served tab. This is the tab that you're going to use for all of your grade groupings 1 through 12, as well as your alternative schools. This was really meant so you could customize it as much as you need. Some schools go off the very standard grade groupings that's defined in code, but you definitely don't need to stick to these. If you can consolidate, let's say you have grades 1 through 5 on the exact same calendar, you are more than welcome to group them and just make sure that you have your building numbers set appropriately for those grades. And then, like I said, duplicate this tab as many times as you need to get, your 6 through 8 and then your 9 through 12, or however you want to split those out. It's really up to you. There's just this reminder up here at the top saying that you can create as many tabs as needed. You do not need to stick to these 3. In fact, if you have one that you aren't using, let's say you don't have half day calendar or kindergarten and you only have full day, you can go ahead and delete this tab by right clicking on it and hitting delete. But for sake of today, I have this example already done. And if you open the form on the website, this example is still in the template so that it's a good reference for you. So let's go ahead and go through this. The first thing that you want to do on all of these tabs is select your district charter. It's just a drop-down list of all of the districts and charters alphabetically. So find yours and it will automatically populate your IFARMS number. So for my example, I'm just District 100. And let's say I only have one building today. I only have grades 1 through 5. So I only have one building. So I'll put my building numbers here and my grades served here. The last thing you want to do up here in this header is distinguish if you're a 4-day school or not. If you are, put a Y and it's going to black out this section for you. Otherwise, you can enter an N and we'll know that you are not 4-day. And then below that is the cell formatting reference key that you are going to want to use pretty much for the rest of this form. What's going to happen next is you're going to color code your calendars month by month. You're going to set your hours and minutes for each of those categories that are above, and then we'll get into your summaries below. So for starters, one thing that you'll want to know, and there's some instructions here as well if you need them, but make sure that you're using the format painter up here in this top left. The best way that I like to do it is using this. You could also right click and use the formatter here. But the perk of doing it up here is if you single click on it, let's say I want to duplicate what the 18th of August looks like to another list, I can highlight and it'll drop the formatting so then I can carry on clicking and it's not going to do anything. The other option I have is, let's say I want to copy that date, but I want to do it for multiple sections. I can actually double click instead, and then I can do multiple different things at once. And it'll format all of it the same until I hit the escape button on my keyboard. So there's just a couple different ways to do that. Whatever you are most comfortable with is definitely the way to go. So what you will want to do is your regular day should be in white. So anything that's a normal day on your calendar, leave white. The standard template has all of the days white except for the required holidays by Idaho code and the weekends. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of guidance in your form. The next is going to be your close days. You will want to gray out everything before your first day of instruction and after your last day of instruction, as well as any other breaks, vacations, close days that you might have throughout the year. Next is going to be your modified days of instruction. This is any day that deviates from your regular day. So you have students, but they're not there for that full day that you normally would define. So let's say my normal day is 6 hours, and I want to have a few half days so they only come in for 3 hours, I would define those in blue. And then last is your staff development days. These are days that don't have instruction, so make sure this is just days that your staff has professional development scheduled. In that calendar manual, it goes into great definition of what staff development is and what doesn't count as staff development. So make sure that you're reading through that as well. And what you're going to want to do is the same thing as before, use your format painter and denote your staff development days here. Before you move on to the tables below, the last step that you have to do with these calendars is make sure that you do two things. First is make sure that you filled out this first and last day of instruction here. That'll just help us reference when we're reviewing these. In each of these months, you are going to want to count all of just your regular days. So if I look at September and I highlight all the white cells, I have 19 regular days, and that's what I will enter in this little cell at the end of each month. So we'll do the same thing for October. Counts 22 minus these 2 days that aren't a full day. So I have 20 days here, and you'll carry that out all the way through the bottom of your year. What this is going to do is auto-populate some of the table below, so it just takes one extra step out for you. So we'll go ahead and scroll down here, and there's some instructions as well, but there are 3 tables that you're going to want to complete. The first is your regular day of instruction. This is all of your white days, and this is those numbers that you counted at the end of each of your months is going to automatically add up down here in your number of days planned. All you need to do for this column is enter what your regular days, hours, and minutes are, and it'll give you your total here at the end. The next column is for the modified days of instruction. Again, this is for the blue. We try and corresponded the blue down here as well. And you can really group these as much as you want. You don't need to list each date individually. But in this example, I have some early release days for holidays, and they're just going to go 3 hours and 30 minutes. And there's 5 of those planned, so that's my total for those hours. And then I have the last day of school is going to be a shortened day as well. So that's just 1 day planned, and there's my total there. And so I can see that my regular hours, I have 925, and then my additional instructional time on those shortened days is 22. Below this is going to be your staff development time. Again, you can group this as much as you want. In my example, my staff development days are scheduled very regularly. That's always the first Friday of each month. And so that is what I'm going to put here in this cell. They meet for 4 hours and 25 minutes each time for 9 days. And this gives me my total here. Again, group this how you wish and separate it how you want. But one important thing to note is that for your kindergarten calendars, only 11 of these hours count towards your instructional time, and for all other grades, it's 22. I strongly encourage folks to include all of their planned staff development, even if it goes over that time cap, because if you have any closures or something changes in your schedule throughout the year and you no longer have those days, it's nice to have the other ones that you have planned already in your calendar, so that you know if there's some time that you can make up or if there's time that's already allotted for it. All right, and one other example that I want to give as well is if you have a modified day of instruction that includes staff development time, put that day in both of these tables. For example, if on my last day of school, I also have staff development time, I would copy this down here and include the staff time as well so that both are accounted for. This way your tables at the bottom will populate correctly. And then we'll scroll down here and we're kind of getting to the icing on the cake, if you will. So below is going to be your totals summaries. Your first is going to be your total hours of regular instruction, your shortened days, and then your staff development already capped at 22. For your grades 1 through 12, this is going to cap at 22. For your kindergarten templates, this is going to cap at 11. So it's actually really important if you're duplicating any of these forms that you're duplicating the correct one so that this cap is accurate. So you can see that it saw that you had 39.75 hours planned and it counted 22 of them. If I were to go up here and change this, let's say I only had 1 Friday, it'll come back to this normal number that is matching my table because it's under the 22 hours. But since I have 9 and I have more planned, it's doing that cap automatically. Below those 3, it's just going to give you your grand total for what you have planned. So it's going to count your instructional time and the staff time that you can count and give you your grand total here. Now, depending on your grade grouping, this cell is always going to be different. Like I said earlier, some schools like to remain on this standard grade grouping defined in code, but if you're doing a custom one like me, I'm doing grades 1 through 5. I'm going to go off of this 900 hours, so that's what I'm going to enter in this box. Note that we are going to pull the highest number of required hours depending on your grade grouping, with one exception. So again, if I have 1 through 5, I'm going to go off 900 instead of 810. But let's say I have grades 9 through 12 grouped together. I will not go off of this 979, even though grade 12 is the highest grade. We're going off the highest required hours for that grade grouping. So we're going to go off of the 990 if I have a 9 through 12 calendar. If you have 12th graders, this is meant for 12th graders that, you know, get released earlier in the year than the rest of the students. Just put them on their own calendar so that they can get that 979 requirement instead of the 990. So below this total, it's just going to give you your difference, and there's a color key over here to help you out. So I've planned 969.667 hours, even though I'm only required to have 900. So it shows that I have a little bit of an overage of extra hours. This is also strongly encouraged, especially for the districts that regularly have snow closures throughout the year. A lot of schools will plan a buffer depending on where you are in the state and how often you have weather closures and things like that. You can determine what your buffer can be. And then if you have, let's say I'm within my requirement, but I don't necessarily have a full day. I have defined my full day as 6 hours and 15 minutes. What this is going to do is if I have extra time, but it's lower than that regular day, it's going to be in yellow. So it tells me that I still have some wiggle room, but if there's another closure, I potentially will not have enough time and I'll have to make up some hours. And then of course, if you're under hours, it'll show red and tell you that you're below the minimum. Last but not least on this form, please fill out your contact information. If you're filling out the forms, you can put your contact information here. Some schools have separate contacts for their emergency closures when it comes to revising their calendars. So if you do have 2 different contacts, please put them here. If not, if you're the same person, you can leave this side blank and that's all right. Lastly, I'm just going to show you how to save this document and get it submitted. So once everything is done, I have double checked my form and everything looks good. I'll just scroll back up to the top and we'll go ahead and save as. I'm just going to go onto my desktop here. If you'll see in our file name, we already have it pre-populated with X's here for you. This is where you're going to put your district or charter number. For my example, I was example 100, and it'll have the rest of this filled out for you. I'm going to go ahead and save over my example. And once you're saved and you're good to go and you're happy with your forms, you can submit them. When you submit, make sure that you're including your patron calendar. That's going to be your calendar that you typically would post to your website for your parents and students to look at throughout the year. Include both of those documents in your submission and you're good to go. So I hope this training video helped. Remember, there's a second one as well for the calendar revision forms as well as the emergency closure forms that you'll have to submit if you have any changes to your calendar throughout the year. Of course, if you have any questions through this process, our contact information is also on the form as well as the website and the manuals. So never hesitate to reach out to us. Thanks.